One of the most delicate tasks facing the head of the hospital is to maintain good relations with the local dignitaries. Today, they are bringing in a man who has had shrapnel in his thigh for several months. The limb is gradually becoming paralyzed. It must be operated upon tomorrow. Twice a day, the doctors visit the ward tents in which the most seriously injured are lying. This young specialist in internal medicine, as he does his round with the medical orderly and an interpreter, is welcomed as a friend by these men who have been stricken by the misfortunes of war. There are as many sick as there are wounded, and diagnosis is often a very difficult matter. In this, the Arab interpreter's role is indispensable. Without him, it would take much longer to diagnose the case of malaria, bilharziosis, or stomach ulcers. The chronic malnutrition, which is the loss of these tribes, does not help matters. There are about 90 patients in the hospital, from the fighting area in the east and from isolated villages in the interior of the Yemen. Some toiled on foot for several days, running a fever of 104 degrees. Little did the ICRC know when setting up its field hospital among the population, whose conceptions are still medieval, that it would stimulate a new idea, the idea that sickness and injuries may be cured. The people who formerly were resigned to suffering and death now flock in their hundreds to Ukt. For these Yemeni, relief of suffering, healing and cure are miracles. Their gratitude to the doctors and nurses is touching to behold. Shukran, shukran, thank you, they repeat after being tended by the man in white. In this sanctuary for the suffering, there are a number of cases of shock. They have lived through the nightmare of war, they have survived air raids, they have seen those dearest to them killed. Microscopic analysis when the temperature is over 120 degrees in the shade is no easy matter, as this medical assistant has found out. But perhaps her life depends on the accuracy of her work. Hundreds of patients have been under this modern X-ray apparatus in this tent. This warrior undoubtedly finds it very extraordinary. But why should he be afraid? He has faith in his God and confidence in those who are nursing him. In this negative, as in others, the radiologist can read the misfortunes and suffering of a people. A casualty is brought in from the front this very morning. He has been seriously wounded in the stomach by shrapnel. Here in this white cabin, called the cleaner box, a marvelous example of technology in the service of medicine, the surgeons will save his life. The whole unit had to be hauled across the rough tracks of Saudi Arabia and the Yemen for 15 days. The operating theater within is only 6 foot by 9, but it is equipped with the latest devices, a sterilizing plant, running water, and air conditioning, all of which are essential for work in the desert. Now, with lancet, forceps, aseptic thread, and the other implements of his profession, the masked white-robed surgeon and his assistants carry out operations at Ukt, just like in any hospital in a modern city, whilst an anesthetist keeps a watchful eye on her apparatus. Several hundred surgical operations have been performed here. In order to undertake this humanitarian task, which it alone was able to assume, the ICRC relied on official and generous support in the land of Henri Dunant. Indeed, the Swiss Red Cross has supplied the largest part of the medical and technical staff working at Ukt. Other national Red Cross societies have sent doctors and nurses to lend their colleagues a hand. Lost in the vast expanse of desert wastes, these volunteers, doctors and assistants, accomplish a difficult but magnificent task. Before coming here, this nurse served the Red Cross cause in the Congo and in Nepal. She must have endless patience and dedication to inculcate the rules of modern hygiene into these outcasts of fortune. But the gleam of gratitude in these eyes is not dimmed by the flush of fever. This Bedouin woman, the mother of several children, has seldom had an opportunity to wash with soap. This, for her, is indeed a luxury. There's no keeping in bed this old stalwart who had to undergo an operation on his leg. He soon became a popular figure in this little colony at Ukt. This is a big day for the hospital. A plane has arrived from Switzerland with several tons of equipment, food, and medical supplies. But this is an exceptional case. For the sake of economy, most supplies come by lorry, a long haul lasting several days and not without danger. Sometimes the sandstorms are so strong that the tents are inadequate to protect stocks, which must be tucked away between the rocks and covered with large plastic sheets. There are two electric generating units, one to operate the cleaner box, the other a source of power for the lighting in all the tents. In the open-air kitchen, the cook has to rely on his two wood-burning stoves, but the food is appetizing nevertheless. The main difficulty is the water supply. It never rains at Ukt, and the nearest well is 15 miles away. A water truck makes the trip every day to bring back the precious liquid. The running of this hospital in the desert requires a staff of 30 people and a great deal of money. It also requires a high ideal, even for the most humble of chores. The stress of work and the tropical heat make it impossible for the members of the medical team to stay for more than 3 months at Ukt. But when they leave, making way for fresh replacements, they have the satisfaction of having carried on to good effect the Red Cross struggle against suffering. Thus, day after day, in this bruised and battered country, the men and women of the ICRC are at work so that, in the words of Henri Dunant, the world shall not perish in hate.